How we doing? How we doing? How we doing? They told me I have to adjust my presentation mode. Give me one sec. So many of you. It's so kind. What's up? I am Daniel, and I am here to talk to you about verbs. So I was working on trying to find a programming-related Texas cult joke to put somewhere in my talk. I couldn't figure out where to put it, so I just put it up front. So let's get it out of the way. Get Branch Davidians. All right. Moving on. Let's make some money. So I don't know if you guys have seen, but I'm Daniel, like Aaron said, and I run an agency called Thunk with my buddy John Drexler. He's running around here somewhere. Oh, there he is, right there, with a Ziploc bag with $1,500 in cash in it. We built a game for Laracon this year called the Thunk Pyramid Scheme. You should play it. So that's the money. It's now in a Ziploc bag. So basically the way that it works is this. The winner gets $1,500 in cash at the end of Laracon. If you walk around the conference between sessions, you'll eventually find one of us with the cash. And with a lot of cunning and a little bit of luck, this brick of cash can be yours to explain to TSA on the way home. So you can sign up at pyramid.thunk.dev, or you can hit that QR code if you're quick. But in order to start playing, you're going to have to come talk to us, and we're going to approve you. That's so that all of the 2,000 of you or whatever who are watching the live stream can't win the cash that we can't give you. So that'll be great. You'll know who to talk to, obviously, by the thing with the cash. So here's how it works. So basically, every hour you can upvote someone and you can downvote someone. Upvoting someone gives them a point. Downvoting someone takes away a point. Whoever has the most points at the end wins. But if the game's progressing and you feel like you might not win, you can always resign at any point and donate your score to someone else. In fact, if you manage to get your score very, very negative, like mine currently is, you can donate your negative score to somebody else and craft yourself into a homing missile to destroy a friend. Has anyone seen any of these? Yeah, they're rare. They're very rare. We've been hiding them around the venue, sometimes in the bathroom, sometimes wherever. Playing a secret code at pyramid.thunk.dev/secret code will give you an extra upvote. Once you play it, it's dead. It can no longer be used, right? So this is the page. You'll enter it here. You get an extra upvote. All of this to say, we built this game as an excuse to teach you about Verbs. So Verbs is an event sourcing library built by me and my buddy Chris Morell, and at this point, a bunch of contributors as well. It's an event sourcing package for Laravel, and we really like building games, so any opportunity to build a game, we're going to take it. And so that is what we built. There's two concepts in verbs that are really important, and I'm going to explain them to you right now. There's only two important concepts, and these are them: states and events. So states are data representing the world at this exact moment, right? And they are mutated by events over time, and you can kind of think of them like your eloquent models in a traditional Laravel app, but they're not exactly like your event model, or like your eloquent models. A good example of a state, for example, in this game is a player's score, right? So the player starts with a score of 0. They get an upvote, it goes up. They get a downvote, it goes down. Events are the other important concept. Events are things that happened. They have data about what happened, and they're immutable. Once they happened, and there's no changing it. All right, here's an example. So imagine we've got a player. Player starts with a score of 0, like all of you did once upon a time when you were new players of the Thunk Pyramid Scheme, before you developed your downline. An event comes in. It's a player upvoted event. So based on a player upvoted event, what's going to happen to the score? It's going to go up. It's going to go to 1. Great. For those of you who didn't get it the first time, here's another chance. Another player upvoted event comes in. What's going to happen to the score? It goes up and it goes to 2. All right, for those of you who really don't get it, we're going to try one more time. A third player upvoted event comes in. What is the score going to be now? 3. All right, cool. Now let's test your pattern matching abilities. A player downvoted event comes in. What do we think is going to happen? 2. All right, we're good, we're good. We understand upvotes and downvotes. This is great. Now let's introduce a little bit of a twist. Let's say our game has a list of valid codes, and anybody can play one of these codes and gain for themselves another upvote. So let's have an event come in. Someone played the code Lil Wayne. What do we think is going to happen to both of these states? I'll tell you, the score is for sure going to go up. But in addition, we need to remove this code from the game. So we'll see here, the score now goes to 3, but the Lil Wayne code is removed, and we're left with 1 valid code in the game. So this single event is mutating both of these states, both of these sort of calculated pieces of data. So now when someone plays another event trying to play the same code again, that's not going to work. Nothing's going to happen. And this, everything over on the left is state, right? So over here we've got 3 is our score, codes is our game. These are pieces of state, and they're being mutated by these events. So as these events fire, the state is updating, and the state is derived in real time from the events. Great, let's do it live. So we're gonna just take a look at the actual production version of the game right now. Oh, I wonder, I don't think I plugged in my internet, so hopefully we're on the internet. So if I hop right in here and turn on screen mirroring, when you write a talk, you don't want to have to switch back and forth between screen mirroring and not, but no one told me that. Okay, cool. So here's the game. This is what the admin panel looks like. So every hour you can upvote somebody and downvote somebody. And then this is the leaderboard. So we see that there are some people who totally didn't cheat at the top of this leaderboard. Got some cool people like Vince Mitchell and Jess Archer. These scores do seem kind of high, though. So I'm just going to take a look at the history on one of these guys. I'm seeing found secret code, 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 found secret code. Okay, I think I have like a little bit of a suspicion about what happened here. So I'm going to try something. So I'm actually going to go to /secret code. Ooh, there's a hyphen in there. Secret dash code. And I'm going to reach into my handy dandy pocket and I'm going to pull out a stack of secret codes. These are worth their weight in gold. And I'm just going to enter a code. 3, 5. All right, I'm going to hit submit. Boom, code accepted. Now, I have a little sneaking suspicion that maybe if I were to press submit over and over and over and over and over and over again, maybe something in the logic of removing that code from the game might not be working, and it's allowing me to reuse the same secret code over and over again. This is an issue. This is an issue. In fact, let me just jump into some code and kind of show you guys in a toy version of this app that's very trimmed down and simplified what I think is going on. So here we go. This is Visual Studio Code. I'm not sure if you're familiar. But right here is a player state, right? So this is a very simple PHP object. I'm going to even bump it a little bit. It's a very simple PHP object, and it has exactly one property, and that property is called score. It extends the state base class, which is published with Verbs. So every player starts with a score of 0. If we go to our Livewire component, let me actually go show you that Livewire component. If we go look right here. So this is a really simple, dumbed down version of this app. So I can hit plus, 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 and I'm upvoting. I can press down, 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 down. I'm downvoting. I can go negative. I can do whatever, right? And so we're going to go look at our Livewire component. We're going to see that there are a few methods on this Livewire component. We've got an upvote method, and all it does is fires an event called upvoted with one property, which is the player ID. Below that, we've got a downvote method, which fires one event called downvoted, and that also passes in the player ID. Then we've got this submit code method, which fires a played code event, passes in the player ID, the game ID, and the code that's being played. So let's go ahead and make this event work. So I'm just going to go to the played code event. I'm going to hop in here, and we're going to see right now, nothing happens. So if I go back over here and I fire off that event, it has no effect. So let's go ahead and apply this event to the player, right? So we want to update the player's score when this event fires. So we've got this apply to player method. This is an event handler. It's a listener. And so I can just inject, and basically any method on a verbs event, you can dependency inject your states. So I'm just going to inject this state, and I'm going to say player score plus plus. Very simple. All right, so I'm going to go back, and I'm going to resubmit the code. And look, I can just submit any code, any string, as many times as I want, and it works. It's progress. So we don't want to be able to submit any string. We only want to be able to submit the strings that are in the game, right? And so we're going to add a little bit of validation to our event, right? Events should be able to determine whether or not they're valid to be fired. So just like we have an apply method here, we're just going to create a validate method. And rather than injecting our player state, we're going to inject our game state. And then we're going to make an assertion that game arrow codes contains this code. Otherwise, we're going to say code whatever is not valid. So I'm mentioning the game state. Let me go take a look at what the game state actually is. So the game state is just an object, just like the player state, and it contains exactly one property, which is a collection of valid codes. So when I seeded the database for this game before I walked on stage, I seeded 3 valid codes: Lil Wayne, Carter 2, and No Ceilings. Mixtape Wheezy. And so I'm going to just take one of these valid codes. But what I should see is that if I try and submit this invalid code, look at that. I now get an exception is thrown, and I'm getting an error. Code ASD is not valid. But I should still be able to submit Lil Wayne, and I do, and I get my extra point. Unfortunately, I can still just submit it as many times as I want. Oh, hello. And so we now need to add a little bit of extra logic to remove this code from the game when it's played. So we're going to go back to the played code. So we've got this validate method, which is checking that the code is valid. We've got this apply to player method, which is changing the player when a code is played. What we need now is an apply to game method, which is going to change the game when an event is played. So let's go ahead and add that right now. So we're just going to add apply to game. We're going to inject our game state. We're going to call it game, and then we'll just say, let's say game codes filter. Sure, that's fine. I was going to use reject, but whatever. All right, cool. So now we've got this. So now what I should see is I ought to be able to play Lil Wayne one more time exactly, right? Because right now that code is still in the game. Once I've played it, it should now remove it from the game, and I won't be able to play it again. So let's see. I got to play it one more time. A moment of truth. Hey, look at that. We played it another time, and we get code Lil Wayne is not valid. So my theory about what happened in production is that we forgot to add this little bit of code which removes a code from the game when it's played. So let me go see if there are any pull requests. Okay. Urgent game-breaking bug fix. Good. This is 2 days ago. John's saying he found a bug where players can use the same code over and over. Please merge now. The entire game will go up in flames if you fail to merge this in. He's tagging me. Really need you to merge this in. You know that dirtbag Jason Beggs is going to cheat. Please merge. Are you even awake? This will be so embarrassing for Thunk if we leave such an obvious exploit in here. You lost your dignity on the basketball court today. Don't lose your dignity on stage too. Merge this branch. Oh, Josh Hanley's just waking up. Need any help? Thanks, buddy. No, we're good. And John apparently has quit, and I run this company by myself now. Oh, dear. All right. So I guess we can merge this PR, right? I mean, we're here. May as well merge the PR, but like, you know, Jess Archer and Vince have already cheated. Like, what are we going to do with all of their data that they've already put into our beautiful production app with $1,500 US in $1 bills on the line? This is a disaster. I mean, imagine, right? I mean, you got to think about like what's probably going on in this app. We've probably got a players table, right, with like a score column, and when you play something, the score column goes up. When you play something, the score column goes down. Well, like, how are we going to determine how much of that score column came from nonsense? I don't know. It's going to be hard. Let's take a look. All right, so I am going to do something a little bit crazy. And I'm just going to SSH into prod on stage. This might be a little small, so I'm going to bump it up. So we're just going to CD into the thing. All right, I know you guys, and because I know you guys, I'm going to take the small precaution of running artisan down. I know that someone would find a way to ruin me. All right, so I've run artisan down, so the site is now in maintenance mode. Now what are we going to do? I am going to briefly just show you what our database in production looks like. So this is what our database looks like in production. We've got a bunch of stuff, cache and jobs and all this other stuff, but really there's a few tables that matter. We've got a games table, which has exactly one row in it. We've got a players table, which has 77 rows in it right now, but hopefully after this, a lot more. We've got a users table, which has 243 of you. I guess the live stream people have found us. Then we've got a Verbs events table, which right now has about like 1,200 or so events that have happened. So that's every upvote, every downvote, every whatever. So, and then there's a few others, snapshots. This is basically like a cache of the Verbs states and stuff like that. So I'm going to run a little artisan command in production, php artisan game : reset data. All right, so what did that do? Disabling foreign key checks, truncating games table, truncating users table, truncating players table, truncating migrations table, truncating snapshots table, enabling foreign key checks. You got to add them back. All right, so I mean, let's just go look at the production database. I just want to see this. So if I go to our players, it's empty. We got no players. Let me just make sure this filter's not on. No players. We got no users. We got no games. We have an empty database. This is very scary. However, we have, the one thing we do have to our name is an events table. And the internet just got really slow. But we do have an events table. There's a lot of events in this table. I swear I didn't truncate them. And so we're going to try something. Let me just see. Am I still connected? All right, I am. Cool. I'm going to run php artisan verbs replay. It's going to ask me if I'm sure. Replaying events without thinking through the consequences can have very negative side effects. That's fine. No one's watching. Are you sure you want to replay all events? You're in production. Are you insane? Yes, I'll do it. All right, there we go. We're replaying all of the events. We've got 1,260 events. I imagine we're going to do it in like about 15 seconds or so. The good news and the bad news. The good news is it's going to replay exactly how it was, because the bad news is I forgot to deploy this on Forge before I did this. So if you'll bear with me, we're going to take a visit to one of the best web applications on the internet, Laravel Forge. It's a good one, ladies and gents. All right, we're in here, we're in Forge, we're going to Laracon Pyramid, we're going to pyramid.thunk.dev, we're going to hit, let's just make sure this is done. This is done, okay, we're going to hit deploy, wait for this deployment, it's not going to take very long, I promise. So after merging the PR, I was supposed to deploy. I was supposed to turn on auto deploy before I walked on stage, but I forgot. We're here. Uh-oh. It's fine. I actually know exactly what's going on, and you're going to hate me for this, so give me 1 sec. But I truncated my migrations table, and I actually don't think I was supposed to do that. And so I am going to briefly grab my local copy of this, and I'm going to, this is where it's at, guys. This is real live demoing in front of 1,000 people in the room, 2,000 people on the internet. This is how it's done. All right, so we're going to CD into source/pyramid. We're going to migrate fresh. And when I come back over here, I should see This is not the right database. I should see localhost, database, pyramid, migrations. There we go. I'm going to grab this migrations table. I'm going to stick it right there. And I'm going to wait for it. There we go. And I'm going to save it. And it's going to push into production. And then I'm going to deploy. Our deployment's going to work great. All right, so we spent a little bit of time. That worked, right? It's deploying. All right. We spent a little bit of time chasing a rabbit, but look, this is what it is to be a developer. It doesn't always go right the first time. All right, so we're here. We're going to deploy this. It has now deployed. Now I'm going to go back into here. I'm going to go back to my production server. I'm going to reset the data once again. Fortunately, it only takes a second to replay 1,200 events. Somebody really worked on the optimization of this. So we're going to replay all of those events, and then we're going to go check in production and make sure that those dirty, dirty cheaters get their comeuppance. One moment. So we're at 1,000. All right, there we go. So we've replayed the events. We're going to go back to our production version of the game. We're going to go back to home. Oh, I forgot to artisan back up. PHP artisan up. I knew you guys. All right, and we are back. And what do we see? What do we see way, way down here at the bottom of everything? Because everyone thought they had really high scores, so they were downvoting them. And this is your just desserts. We see Vince Mitchell, and we see Jess Archer below even me on the scoreboard. So anyway, this is a Verbs replay, and it is incredibly powerful. This is just one possible example of it. So let me hop back into this. Well, first, let me turn off screen mirroring. It's very important to juggle back and forth as many times as possible. Turn off screen mirroring, re-enable my presentation. All right, so what just happened? What just happened is we wrote an app with a bug. You've never done that, but I have. People could reuse codes, and if it isn't obvious by now, we knew that that bug was in there, and we did it on purpose, and we were hoping that some innocent soul like Vince Mitchell would come along and find it, and they did. We told Jess Archer about it, just in case. But then we fixed the bug for the future, right? We added validation, we merged a pull request, and nobody could exploit that bug again in the future. But what about the past? What about the past? This is always the problem, right? Even if you have like an activity log, even if you have like extremely detailed history on all of your models, what changed, whatever, you're still talking about burning 2 days into like a terrible data migration script that you're going to write. And then if you mess that up, you're writing an even worse data migration script to fix it. So what did we do? We just truncated all of our production database tables. And then we replayed our event stream, our new logic applied to our old events, and it was like that bug never existed in the first place, which is nuts. So we end up with clean historical data. So again, I hate to keep harping on it, but let's imagine this problem with no events. Let's imagine we had just done the obvious thing and had a player's table with a scores column, and one of you guys cheated, which you certainly would. I know your character. If one of you had cheated, the best we could hope for was to figure out who cheated and just ban them, right? But we wouldn't know how widespread it was. We wouldn't know if one of you was more subtle than Vince Mitchell, who really just hit it right on the nose. We would have no clue. And so we would be basically forced to guess or try and derive backwards, but our level of certainty would be incredibly low. We'd have all of the data, but we'd have no origin story for the data. We wouldn't know where the data came from. We'd have no way to separate the good data from the bad data, right? And that's the thing. Anytime I've had like a big incident in a production app, which never happens, but anytime I have had a big incident in a production app, we've always been forced to sort of like, okay, well, here's the known good point in time. Now we can at least get back to that, and then maybe we can rescue some of the data that happened after that. But in this case, it's much easier to just say, here are the known bad events. Event streams are super powerful for all sorts of things. Imagine a security incident, right? Imagine someone gets in, They get like a super admin account they're not supposed to have, and they just start wreaking havoc in your app. They're banning people, they're deleting things, they're linking to Russian Bitcoin casinos. Things are going really, really, really bad, right? There is a practice that we do in a lot of production apps, which is we store a little bit of metadata with all of our events. And one of those pieces of metadata is the IP address that the event was fired from, which is really great because if I can then find out the attacker's IP address, I can write a small amount of code to just say, hey, when you're replaying an event, if it has this metadata of this IP address, just don't. Just pretend it didn't happen. And I can then truncate my tables, which obviously I would do on a local copy if I wasn't trying to get claps from you guys. So I would truncate my tables, and then I would replay my events, and I would get all of my data back as though that malicious actor had never gotten in and executed those events. Schema migrations. I did a whole big talk at Laracon Europe about schema migrations. There was a big project we did where we migrated a whole big legacy 15-year-old procedural PHP app to a brand new shiny Laravel app with both systems working in tandem, feeding the same event stream, which was projecting out to both databases. So changes in the new system affected changes in the old system and vice versa. There's a big, long talk about that, and you can go watch it on YouTube. But that is like an incredible use case for this type of thing. Let's talk about nouns. Nouns are really good for querying the state of the world. Like, we're object-oriented programmers. We like things that are nouns, like players, Who doesn't like a player? I hate a player, but not the game. So the player is an object, and it has an attribute, like a score, right? And we're so used to sort of, when we think about user behavior, we tend to transform it into nouns, right? And we think about like, oh, when the user's score went up, right? But there's a challenge I'd like to offer you, which is to start thinking instead of what changes did this action make to the data, think in terms of what happened, right? And if you can store verbs in your database, there's a lot of opportunities. So yeah, nouns, they're pretty rigid, they're pretty inflexible. Once you have an integer in there, it's kind of hard to disambiguate. Say I wanted to disambiguate the player's score and say, this score came from this half of the room and this other score came from the other half of the room. There's no way for me to sort of split that integer down the middle and know that historically. Verbs, on the other hand, verbs are really good for deriving the state of the world. So nouns are good for querying the state of the world. Verbs are good for deriving the state of the world from. Because what happened never changes, but what it means changes a lot, right? And so if you think about like a long-running application, the users did what they did, right? Like there's no getting around it. The people did what they did. You and I, if we're being honest with ourselves, we're trying to change what it means that they did those things. When we make, big refactors or we change features based on like old historical data. So I think this is like a really, really important point, right? Is that when we condense users' activities down to like super flat data, right? We're just throwing away an enormous amount of granularity and specificity that we could know, but we choose not to. But B, we're making the decision now about what their actions mean, right? Instead of just capturing their actions, we can make a decision about what their actions mean now, but that decision is essentially disposable, and we can make another decision tomorrow and another decision the next day. And that's really why I want to give this talk here at Laracon US. I kind of want to be like the angel on your shoulder, like telling you that like event sourcing is really cool and like it's not really that hard to get into, and one day if you do it, you'll be really, really glad when like a complete nightmare happens. But anyway, this talk was crazy. So we built a whole app. There's like a bunch of you guys playing the app. A bunch of people were involved, and I certainly didn't do it alone. So I've got a ton of people that I just kind of want to shout out and tell you about because they're incredible people, and you're here, and I want you guys to get involved with the community that I'm involved with because the community I'm involved with rules. So this is Chris Morrell. He is my co-author on Verbs. He used to be my boss. Now he's one of my best friends, and he's just an incredibly good, smart person. He's probably like top 3% smartest people in this room. Super, super smart. And incredibly useful and kind and helpful, way beyond what he needs to be. This is John Drexler. He's my business partner, and he and I founded Thunk together. He is also an incredible game designer. He builds board games. Some of you I know for sure have copies of his board games. But in addition to making board games, he loves to make these sort of like event-sourced web-based games. And Thunk was kind of founded out of that. Skylar Katz. Skylar works for Chris and is also super cool and kind. Jacob worked on all of the Livewire and the front end of the game and spent tons and tons of hours working on it. And Josh Hanley also works with us at Thunk and is he's one of the core contributors to Livewire, probably the biggest one besides Caleb, I think, for sure. And he has helped us a ton with sort of what our interaction between Livewire and Verbs looks like. And he's going to be giving a talk on specifically Livewire and Verbs in Australia at Laracon AU. All right, I'm wrapping up, so I gotta rip it out quick. But basically, it means a lot to me to be on this stage. My first Laracon was in 2017. Caleb and I had just started a podcast called 20% Time, I think. We were just kind of wandering around. We recorded a podcast. Adam was selling TDD screencasts at the time. This is 2019, which is the first one I have a picture from. Caleb gave Embrace the Backend, which is kind of the talk that led to Livewire. Adam gave Cruddy by Design, which is a talk that I reference to this day with my clients on like a monthly basis. Being in this community has meant a ton to me. I remember I came back from these things and I told my wife, I was like, who was my girlfriend then? Like, I think I know the community I want to be in for like the next 10 years of my career. So I don't mean to bore you all with this ancient history, but it's just wild to me to be standing up on the stage talking to the biggest Laracon audience I think there's ever been. So much has changed in this community since I got into it, and so much has changed in my own life. I've gotten married, I've moved across the country. But I'm so grateful to this community for allowing me to build a life here and allowing me to build a business here and allowing me to do all of the things I've been allowed to do. I was able to go to 4 Laracons in the last year and talk about Verbs. It's been a complete blast. So thank you so much for welcoming me into this community, welcoming my friends into this community, welcoming my wife into this community. It's been a complete blast, and I will be here until Sam Altman pries programming from my cold, dead hands. Thanks, guys.
Where are you going? Where are you going?
Woo!
You can just leave it there. We got people that'll take care of it.
Oh, right.
Why don't you come over here for a second?
You.
Hey, great job, Daniel.
Oh,
all right. Hey, this guy. He knows exactly what's going on.
I do.
Way to play it cool. Can we get a round of applause for just YOLOing it live and making it work? Also, accidental deepest quote of the day. What happens never changes. What it means does. Like,
yeah.
That's the only thing I heard, honestly. That was
yeah.
Okay, so deep quotes aside, philosophically, Verbs is different than every event sourcing package I've ever seen. In my opinion, I did not hear much jargon. So philosophically, how are you designing this library?
Yeah, I mean, we designed the library to have 2 important words, and they're words you've heard before, state and event, right? We did our best to sort of divorce Verbs from as many of the opinionated design pattern-y things as possible, so you don't need to read a book to understand how to start working with Verbs. Our goal is really just to make this incredible technique as accessible as possible, right? And if you know what you're doing, you know what these words are euphemisms for, you can go far with this as well.
Love it. I love that I don't need to know what a projection is. Second question, you and John, big game guys. He designed a board game, you're designing this game. What's the deal with games?
Yeah, I mean, John and I, Thunk was started as like a COVID let's build a game project. And we spent like 2 years building a game with us and all of our friends, and we played it on Discord. It was event sourced. Of course. It was a whole thing. And during that process, we really enjoyed building products together. And we're like, you want to take the show on the road? So we've been doing it for a year and a half now professionally, and it's a blast.
Love it. Yeah. Lots of good games here. Good job,
awesome.
Daniel. Give him a hand.
Thank you, buddy.